He is a very popular examiner of surgical oncology and almost an answer to our prayers. Above all, his classes has always taught us to be a complete oncologist and not just an oncosurgeon. If I may please invite Vijay Kumar Sir, Professor and Director of Kidwai Memorial Institute of Oncology, Bangalore.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see at least 20 odd people. I thought after the governor leaving, Excellency Governor, everybody would leave. Before I forget, I should thank all the organizers and in particular Dr. Chandra Mohan to have remembered people like me and invited. And on behalf of Indian Association of Surgical Oncology as its president, I should compliment the whole of Kerala for taking the lead to start the Kerala chapter of Association of Surgical Oncologists. And I should compliment everyone who was involved, and also Dr. Santosh John Abraham, our president of ASI, to be present here for the function. And the topic why Dr. Chandra Mohan chose, I do not know. He knows, I'm sure he knows it's going to be more of a critical review of the training rather than complimenting the trainers as well as the trainees. It is not going to be. This surgical oncology definition I have been seeing Dr. Satishan telling, Dr. Ayappan showing, and Dr. Gopinath sitting by my side said this whole chapter has been removed in this present DVITA said. So DVITA doesn't like surgical oncology be a part of oncology. I do not know. But whether he likes it or not, somebody has to operate, and that is called a surgical oncologist. So he is expected to perform some unique and complicated surgical procedures, and what was considered as unique today many people do, so that's why they don't want surgical oncologists, I think. One example I can think of would be, say, liver surgery. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I finished 30 full years of surgical oncology in Kidwai itself. I joined in 84, I completed in 2012, 30 years. No liver surgery comes now to us. I was wondering where they are going. They are going to the liver transplant surgeons because they don't have a job to do transplant, so to do resection. And that's a fact, because they are trained well in liver surgery, so they do better resections, they claim at least, and so the livers go there, and no more it is called as a unique and complicated surgical procedure. What was considered as unique, now it is becoming a common procedure for them at least. So surgical oncology, first definition itself is in trouble, performing unique and complicated surgical procedure. Clinical protocols for cancer patients. The moment when the word protocol is used, medical oncologists jump at me. Protocol means it is medical oncologist. It is not a surgical oncologist at all. That is how the companies are pushing them. And I may have to use the word, the nomenclature used by my senior Dr. Gopinath, Momo practice. I said, what is that Momo practice, sir? It is market-oriented medical oncology practice, he said. Thank you very much, sir, that I will remember this. It is called Momo practice because it is they who formulate the protocols and somebody else does it. And so no more the protocols are done by the doctors, be it surgeons or radiotherapists or medical oncologists. And they lead the fellow doctors. The problem here is every fellow doctor is a leader, nobody is a follower. And I started my career under Dr. Gopinath, who is sitting here as a resident. Even today I come first, I am the director of the institute. And my fellow doctors, particularly the residents, come much later and driving an Audi car. Even today I come with a Swift. But that is how the trend in the general is. I am not trying to say that we are losing. What I am trying to bring out is what was considered as the definition of a surgical oncology is no more accepted to many of us because page down, page up, nothing is working. See, they established the highest standard of care. Fine. That is fine. It's another story. So we'll see the past status before we see the present status, I thought. If you know that Dr. Satishan also spoke, these are basically overlapping like specialties, no? When you do, Dr. Ayappan also does laparoscopy, Dr. Padival also does laparoscopy, I also do laparoscopy. So there is an overlap. Similar way, in surgical oncology in the past everybody was doing, but only thing is nobody was willing to burn their fingers with respect to results. So the general surgeons who are taking the lead were doing these radical procedures. In the absence of specialized centers, they trained themselves. Most of them were autodidacts, and they trained themselves, and then they went on to do it, and actually kudos to them. But later on, when surgical oncology was trying to evolve over specialized centers, then came from general surgery, some people from gynec group as well as the ENT started doing cancer surgery. But everything was going on in a more informal way, the training was going on. So the training was not at all going on in a most formal way and more comprehensive way. And from my point of view, after staying there for 30 years, a cancer surgeon, be from whatever stream he is or she is, has to see the tumor and beyond surgery. What do I mean by that? Beyond seeing beyond tumor and beyond surgery, and that is what cancer surgeon is. If you have understood, then you are a cancer surgeon. What is the present status? What is happening? In informal training went on, and people started evolving to make it as a formal training, and fellowship programs came. Some did it for 1 year, some did it for 2 years, and so on. And as we moved on, we came to the more formal university-based or the board-based programs. Here, I have to deviate a bit and tell you. I was attending the Society of Surgical Oncology USA meeting in 2009. First I was called as a secretary. I was the secretary, now I am the president. At that time there was a debate. Believe it or not, there was a debate. I was very much present, saying that whether the surgical oncology should be treated as a separate specialty or not. They were talking in USA in 2009, whereas in India the MCH and MCH program was accepted in principle in 1973 by Medical Council of India. Although we started the first program in 1984, the credit goes to the Cancer Institute at Madras University at that time. And secondly, they started the MCH program in GCRI Ahmedabad and Kidwai Memorial Institute of Oncology. I belong to one of those early batches of MCH. Soon after that, the DNB program came, National Board, and suddenly, people will never like things growing well. That is typical of our sector. MCH is equivalent or DNB or MS or DNB equivalent. That big letter came. Fortunately for everybody, it was Dr. Vijay Kumar who settled it in Supreme Court. Today, if anybody is doing DNB, take it from me, it is equivalent. And then came the duration of training. Earlier it was started in 2 years and now it has settled for 3 years. Whether this 3 years is good enough or not, I really don't know today. I'll tell you why. The present status as far as the number is concerned, it was 1:1 professor versus student ratio. 3 years back, one fine morning, the government of India through NCI said the teacher-student ratio will become 1:2. I don't know how many of you know. Today it is 1:3. For MCH program, one professor can train 3. That means number is what was 1:1 has become 1:2, now 1:3. And the 23 DNB program students every year are getting joined. I am not telling they are passing, they are joining. And 55 MCH students are every year passing. If you look at it, the background with which they go to DNB and MCH program is also little funny. We are accepting the general surgery postgraduates, that is MS general surgery, MS ENT, MS gynec, MS orthopedic as accepted for entry point to become DNB and MCH in surgical oncology. And people, we have trained in Kidwa itself that ENT and gynec people, orthopedic nobody has come, but gynec and ENT have definitely come and they are going through. Why I am saying that is, this is what MCI said it in 1973, we are all following it. But one fine morning, the MCH gynec oncology and MCH head has come, where there is no entry for general surgeons. I don't know why, but that is how things are moving. Then what is an ideal program of training? Is it MCH, is it fellowship, is it DNB or anything else? And where do we stand today? How we are going to go forward, we'll see. One more confusion I get always is when I talk about training and teaching. When I started as a teacher, there are 2 students per year with the MCH. For example, Subramanian Rao was there with me. At that time getting scolding from me. Now he is scolding me. So that is how it is. And at the same period of time, Dr. Ayyappan was sitting with me as a non-PG teacher, resident. So much I harassed, he went to do MCH in Madras. So the point here is, whether Ayyappan was well trained by me or Dr. Subramanian was well trained during MCH is what I am trying to analyze. Because I personally feel the people who have got trained by me as residents are better surgeons than, I am not talking about Subramanian Rao now, than MCH people who are not, to be frank, good surgeons, but their knowledge is much more. So I do not know now what is happening here. The residents who got trained are better by the same team, same people are teachers and same institution, whereas MCH, I was wondering why this is happening. I don't know, but I only guess that there is a stress of examination sitting there and everybody is studying or reading, hopefully they are reading nowadays, for the examination. Whereas, and resident thinks that he has completed his MS general surgery and come to me only to get trained, so the stress of training is not there and he probably absorbs surgery much more easily and much more conveniently and comfortably. And one more important thing is he need not face me as an examiner, so he always questions and learns more. But the MCA students are always worried about the exam, so they don't question and they don't interact, it becomes passive and they become at the end of the 3 years more passive than what they entered, and in the examination hall they do not even present properly, though we have trained them well. This passive nature has come. Jokes apart, I really mean you are not allowing them to become more and more interactive, and I always have told, this is my personal view on the medical education. In MBBS the teaching is passive, that is one-sided, I teach, they listen. In MS and DNB broad specialties, I feel it is active, they read more and then come and do seminars, etc. In MCH level, I feel it should be more proactive and interactive. So passive, active towards interactive and proactive they have to become. But unfortunately they become active, passive and more passive. That's what happens because MBBS fellow doesn't care because I cannot be his teacher. So he will start be very active and aggressive. And the MS fellow, he knows I may not, becomes passive. The MCH fellow knows very well I am the examiner, so he will become more passive. He doesn't open his mouth, he doesn't talk. I am seriously telling this, they do not talk. I don't know why. I really do not understand. They should be much more aggressive in talking because they should have read more than me and come and talk, but that doesn't happen. And this made me think what should be the objectives of our training program called by MCH or DNB or fellowship. It should revolve around patient care, it should revolve around surgical skills and a comprehensive knowledge, leadership skills. And in one of the interviews which I was there in Trivandrum, and the IS officer attending asked a specific question to the post-MCH and post-DNBs to people who have come for the assistant professor training, what is a soft skill? And that person did not even know. Then I have to interview and tell, sir, these are all not taught in our medical curriculum. They will learn over a period of time. Because I have to say something, then I explain what is soft skill. Now I am going to tell what is soft skill here. The theory of ask. Ask is attitude, skill and knowledge. Many people think, particularly doctors, when we have knowledge, we know everything. And when we surgeons, we have skill, you think sky is the limit. But unfortunately, without the right attitude, I don't think you will ever reach anywhere what you are thinking you will reach. That is the problem. I personally feel this is the problem today the younger generations are suffering from, because for example I will tell you, whatever Dr. Subramanian unfortunately could not show, you think you need not even bother because you will see it in the YouTube. That is the problem. This attitude has come. You need not show, I can see. This attitude is a small example I am telling, that mentorship is gone and followership is gone, and the 3 years has become a prisoner for like attitude. Keep quiet, I know how to pass man, why should I listen to this old fellow? This is the attitude. This attitude, as long as you have got it as a PG, as whatever you do, you are not going to improve, because there are so many, what is not written in the book has come only by the mentorship from the teachers down. My teacher, what he told me when I was grumbling, unlike you people, you are all very passive. I said, what sir, this I am not even understanding what you are talking. Then an operative surgery. Then he said, Vijay, don't look at what I am doing on my right hand, look at what my left hand does. If you do that, then you will become a better surgeon. This nobody told me. I was watching because he was right-handed person, so right hand, what is right hand is going on only I was watching. He said, no, what my left hand does also is important, see. And you must be dexterous to see both hands working, not one hand working. Who asked you to look at my right hand? I was not convinced. It's very difficult to convince me. So what, sir, you are going on telling right hand, left hand, ultimately no hand is working there. That is what surgery is all about. You are not able to see. Watch. You watch, he said. I still said no. Then he got so wild, he gave the Humvee's knife to me. He was doing a skin grab. Do it. I said, very happy I was. It went into the subcutaneous tissue. Not even half centimeter, it has gone to subcutaneous. I looked at him. He said, what? Do. You said no, you are ready. Do. I couldn't take 1 centimeter piece of tissue. I looked at him. He said, try. Again I tried 1 centimeter. What happened? You watched me, you said no. Then I am taking the same without any adjustment. He took about 15 centimeters long skin graft. That night I could not sleep out of depression. With the same blade, without any adjustment, he could do and I could not do. What is the problem? I didn't understand, but he kept on telling me, look at the left hand, look at the right hand, but I couldn't. So, when on the table, when he is trying to explain everything, I could not do after 6 months. Then I got the point, I did it. And many of the youngsters think by seeing the YouTube, you can do everything. That is the problem. Kindly look into it, I am not joking. Please look into what I am telling. Let us go to little of science, apart from my opinion. There is only one paper I could think of. It is also good friend of mine, Dr. Chandra Arey. He has published recently in Annals of Surgical Oncology 2015. To him, Dr. Hemant Raj and I co-authored few in the similar subject, but this particular is on surgical oncology training in the world globally. He has divided up into regions as per the WHO, and in the regions I have picked up what I was thinking is to be compared. One is India, another is China, Australia is because in the Pacific, and USA and Netherlands because I could not get UK. Why this is more important from my point of view as we stand scientifically. He was trying to first categorize them into what is called as this little science, please listen to me. HDI is Human Development Index. In the Human Development Index, what is called as Human Development Index is an index developed by the UNESCO and the United Nations Development Scheme, wherein they have categorized the countries based on certain indices, including the life expectancy, educational status, etc., in which India and China come under the so-called medium HDI, whereas Australia, USA obviously are in the high HDI, that is Human Development Index. If they compare that, we are seeing that inhabitants versus physicians, you see what is happening there. We have got 1500 is to 1, 1 is to 1500, whereas in USA it is 1 is to 400. But why I said this is, they have got 1 is to 400, but only in 2013 they accepted a formal fellowship program converted into a board program. Whereas without applying any science, we did it in 1973. MCA recognized it as surgical oncology, but we are still struggling to move forward. Very recently only the numbers have increased. The number of centers were around 5 only, MCH. Recently it is around 9 in the centers. But the centers, whether they are doing what is called as a proper training. Now a little I will talk from the trainee's point of view. MBBS he has to do for about 5 years, 5.5 years, then MS, then MCH. How long will continue to study, I don't know. So that also I compared the duration of study in India from the point of entry into MBBS till he becomes a surgical oncologist around 13 years. By the time he will become old. Nobody will give him a girl to marry, and a girl, if it is there, a father like me will never allow her to become a surgical oncologist. The China, if you take it, is 17 years. It is 17 years. It's the nearest neighbor with a big mass population. So comparing India and China is easy, not India versus USA, because it is incomparable because of the population, because of the number of physicians. But the number of years of duration of training to make a person to come out as a surgical oncologist, almost 17 years here, there, we have got only 13 years. But still we are struggling. What is then a comprehensive program? If you are struggling with 13 years also, are we talking about the surgical oncologist knowing about screening, cancer registry, data management, academic program, research oriented, publication presentations only? Again, I moved to US about 2 weeks ago. Dr. Subramanian and I were there in the SSO meeting. All the papers which we saw were not even 10% of them were talking about pure surgery. These are a surgical oncology conference presenting to surgical oncologists by surgical oncologists, but the papers presented were all related to either interdisciplinary or translational research or basic research, but none of the papers, at least 10% may be there, but 90% of the papers were not at all pure surgery. So I was wondering what is happening there. But their strength was, they were talking about more on research oriented papers, the database management, more on statistics, whereas I don't think my MCH student would talk that much, but unfortunately or fortunately he will perform surgery better. So there I feel they are talking something which is, according to me, with all criticism, irrelevant to us. Because if I am producing a cancer surgeon and throw him to the society, I want him to operate first. This is my personal view, and research paper should be second priority. I am not telling don't research. What I mean is research paper cannot make him a surgical oncologist. Surgical capability of giving research to the patient will be my priority as a teacher, rather than making him write a paper and forget about surgery. If both are there, and that will be the best. Today MCA has opened their eyes. Even for promotions, they are talking about publications. They were never bothered till 2010. Now they are talking about mandatory papers, at least the teaching cadre. That is fine. But all are not going to become teachers. We are talking about training them to become the good surgeons. So are we talking about the next step, the surgical oncology training, medical oncology training, radiation oncology? This is what Dr. Satheesan as well as Dr. Ayyappan was concentrating on. But when you try to do that, this is what we are doing actually in any institute in India. But at the end of the day, I feel some of them are very happy prescribing chemotherapy rather than taking the knife to operate. It is an easy route to go and big money. So with an MCH, ultimately by having trained them in medical oncology as a part of the surgical oncology program, they become pure medical oncologists, very pure. Not even like other people, very pure. Because there is a lot of money. So we said, no, don't do that. We'll go to the organ system, train them in head and neck, train them in thoracic, GIT, genitourinary, etc., etc. Then comes another problem here. The head and neck surgery, they have got their own MCH program now. So my MCH students are treated as second grade citizens there, in the same unit, in the same institute. Then comes gynecology, the same problem is occurring. Even they trying to write a paper there will become, no, it's our paper, our department don't do. Till yesterday they were agreeing, but they are not doing now. And if this is the way this is going on, then what is the surgical training what we are going to do? Number of surgeries, if you look at it, incidentally, Dr. Gopinath will remember in 2000, we sat and wrote regulations for MCH surgical oncology, how many surgeries each student should do in the first year independently with assistance. That is what I&A means, independent with assistance. How many surgeries he has to do in second year, third year. This is what we wrote. And in my own institute, where I am the director, I don't know whether it is implemented. We wrote. We have got rules, regulations, statutes, ordinances. Very nice it is to hear in India. All these are in India is available. There is an act called University Act, means we have to do all this. And regulations, if you don't know, if you deviate from the regulations, it can be questioned in the court of law, you will win the case. But is it implemented? I do not know. It's all in the paper. How many patients, how many surgeries have to be done independently and assisted, are all in the paper. It is there. So somebody has written. But is it being followed? I ask myself, I think it's not followed, to be very frank. If you look at the lacunae openly, there is a uniform training pattern and curriculum is not at all there. Believe me, I am the examiner for last 15 years across the country. I can tell whose curriculum is what. It is not at all uniform. It is not uniform. Some places they are giving importance to something else, and here it is something else. So I think it is time that we should give a uniform training pattern and the curriculum. Uniform training pattern. And what is written in the book is what I said about regulation. Somehow we will have to make it to be implemented. And you take the basic definition of surgical, that's what I said. Dr. Satishan gave one definition, Dr. Ayyappan gave one definition. Now I don't know to give a definition, because at least they know to define. I don't know to define. If you look at USA, head and neck is not there. Only thyroid is part of surgical oncology. Urology is not there. Gynecology is not there. Only thoracic, thyroid, breast, upper GI, lower GI, soft tissue, not bone. This is surgical oncology definition by them. In Europe, it is different. But in India, till they started MCH gynecology and head and neck, and hopefully not many people will take up, I feel only 2 centers have got it as MCH program. In surgical oncology, if you look at it, in our country, it is head to foot minus brain. Maybe that's why I have taken surgical oncology, minus brain. But apart from brain, everything else we operate, head to foot. I have been trained so. And here comes another problem. At least in countries the definitions are there. Here the cities definitions vary. If you are in a metropole, particularly if you are practicing in corporate, they dictate what you should do, what you should not do. I am telling you, you will be qualified surgical oncologist, but they will come and tell you don't do esophagus. I asked why. It happened to me. I asked why. No, thoracic surgeons feel their work is come down. Is it my problem? If the cardiologists are taken the bypasses in the form of stent, they are left with no. For somebody saying that don't do esophagus, who is he to tell? I change my place and go and do. Show the results. You go to a place where you are the boss. Do it. Everybody wants to be in Trivandrum, this is what will happen. I am telling you, go to smaller towns, go to second tier cities, you be the boss. You should be the lion in your cave. Then you see what happens. Don't tell it is a cave. If you are going to come and sit only in the seeing 10-story building, that is the only way to run the show. It is not going to happen. You don't expect the system to change for you. You have to change for the sake of the system. System is not something you can change, but you can change yourself. It is easy to change your perspective, your training, your ways of looking at it, and change according to the needs without changing the basic principles. You are chosen up, you do it. You have to do everything, and that is the way to go about it. Then what are the solutions I thought of? And I also asked people. They said, no, like olden times you should have a mentoring, don't rotate. This is what they said. Some of them, don't rotate. Dr. Vijay Kumar should have 2 residents, and 3 years he has to train. If he has to send it to Edenet, he has to send and go. Now these 3 years students become nobody's students, because there are 4 professors, nobody is their mentor, because that is how the training goes on in the rotation. Now they are telling, no, you take the responsibility, there must be a logbook, you have to check it, you have to do. Then somebody, one person, it is easy to handle 2 people, rather than whole department 24 people are working. It's a problem for their children. This is what one of the suggestions came. More operating hours, instead of more book work, more operating hours, more assisting and more training. And we have to think of innovative modules. That is particularly I learned from the laparoscopy group. That is, you can't directly go and do a laparoscopy on a human being. Try to do that on dummies. Try to learn and try to do the same thing there. That is how you will have to move, because the number game will be a problem. And lastly, the surgical assessment is not done in any examination. It cannot be done. MCA scrapped in 30-40 years ago. If people don't know, last it was scrapped was in MCH neurosurgery, where the evaluation was on surgical assessment also, operative surgery. No more it can be done, because there will be a problem about human rights problem, saying that you are treating the individual as a guinea pig. So that cannot be done. But during the 3 years, logbook can be maintained. You can have an assessment of what you are doing, what you are not doing, and how much you are doing. This is possible. And that is how you have to change and move. And last but not the least is, this is the scientific way. The same author R.I. has given the solutions. The funny thing is, he says the duration of duration of training should come down, not more. I was thinking that he is going to say 1 more year you put it to subspecialize it. But he talks about tailoring to meet. Suppose in India, if you are more here is oral cancer, you train them more in oral cancer, you are unnecessarily training them in liver. I am just giving an example where you don't see. Whereas you go to North India, Ganges belt, day in and out you see the cancer of the gallbladder, which you don't see down south. So that is what he means by tailoring according to meet according to what is required. And lastly, you have the low HDI countries. We fall into the medium HDI, as I told you. Between India and China, we are medium HDI, neither low nor high. That is our problem. Neither we are east nor we are west. Neither we are civilized nor we are uncivilized. That's how we behave. That is the problem. In our thinking pattern also. We don't accept risk completely. We don't want to follow what is open also. So that means next what he is telling is, the surgical oncology self-assessment programs are there. Those modules are there. You can download them. You try to assess and try to do this sort of program to improve on your own the training. Where do you stand? This is how it is coming up. But having said all these solutions and lacunae, the training today in surgical oncology, it has to improve. There are only one way at the end of the day. The trainer, that is a teacher like me, should take the responsibility of training and spend more time with the trainees. And the trainees should understand book is not the only answer. There is something called as a teacher, respect him and go with him. Definitely, this is the only way we can make the mentorship and followership is there. Surgical oncology will go a long way, because remember, surgical oncology is a skill-based training. It cannot come from the book alone. It cannot be. Without knowledge, can you do skills and all? Don't question. You can read the knowledge, but I am telling, when you apply the skill, you require somebody to mentor, saying this is the right way to do and this is not the right way to do. If you understood this, the trainer and trainee, if that relationship improves to go back to 20 years, I am sure our programs will go a long way, rather than going on fretting and fuming about what is happening to us. Nothing will happen. We'll all have our bread and butter nicely. You don't worry about that, and you will go a long way. This is what I would conclude, saying that the training program today, I analyze so much from my own angle and some scientific papers, but from my point of view, this personal, that unless you improve your relationship between the mentor and trainee, we are not going to go anywhere, however much people like me talk. Thank you very much for the patient here.
Thank you very much.